Hello, everybody. My name is James Marsh, and this is Marsh Attacks. This episode, I want to talk about Predator Badlands. Now, by my count, this is now the ninth film in the franchise, if you include the Alien versus Predator films. And for reasons that I probably won't go into in too much detail, it does feel like the franchise wants you to include those, as it seems the Alien and Predator franchises are quickly becoming pretty much the same franchise. This is now the third film overseen by Dan Trachtenberg. He did Prey, which I thought was an absolutely fantastic prequel to the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger classic, a film I hold very, very close to my heart. And then he oversaw the animated movie Killer of Killers, which debuted earlier this year. The new film Predator Badlands takes the franchise in a wildly new direction, not least because our protagonist is now the yautja, the alien itself. He finds himself on the planet Jenna, also known as the Death Planet, where everything there is trying to kill you. It's a bit like Australia that way, I imagine. And he has to kill the Kalisk, which is a legendary creature no one has been able to vanquish, and take it home as his trophy in order to win back his father's respect and his love. While he is there, he crosses paths with Thea, who is a bisected synth android belonging to Wayland Yutani, the company from the Alien franchise. So you see how these two are cross-pollinating very early on. They quickly form a partnership out of a sort of mutual desperation in order to successfully traverse this planet full of nasty beasties and survive, etc., etc. I have to be honest, this movie put me on the back foot almost immediately. While I respect wholeheartedly the fact that Trachtenberg is taking the franchise in bold new directions, it really feels like tonally this is a departure too great. In fact, from the opening moments, opening on a desert planet, 2 minutes later, you got two male characters sword fighting. It feels so much like a Star Wars movie that I was kind of getting worried. This feels to me like a Disneyfication of the franchise. It is populated with cute characters, quirky sidekicks, horrible beasties that at the end of the day, are just trying to survive just like everybody else. This is another example of a Disney movie trying to exonerate the central villain. I think this probably started with the Star Wars prequels back in 99, where they take an iconic villain, in this case the Predator, and they look into his backstory, his origins. How did this character come to be this way? Quite frankly, I mean, it may have, and this is may have, worked for Darth Vader. I'm of a generation where the prequels aren't great, but I know a lot of people love them. But when it comes to the yautja, when it comes to the Predator, I don't want to know about his daddy issues. I don't really care about his origin story or his emotional motivations for doing what he's doing. They've kind of established that sufficiently already. It's a rite of passage to prove yourself a warrior. That's fine. That is sufficient. A predator is a predator. As soon as you start delving into their sort of family emotional backstory, they become something more than that. And maybe you're saying, well, that's the point. This is like the Frankenstein story. It's like you've got to look beneath the surface and find the heart of the creature. But it's not a predator anymore then. There is a time and a place to have that kind of discussion. Frankenstein, for example, is the perfect place to have that kind of discussion. Whereas in a Predator movie, what I want to see is expertly trained warriors, using bizarre extraterrestrial weapons or honing, their survival skills in a hostile environment. I don't really want to sympathize with the alien. I want there to be sort of a human character, or at least an adversarial character with whom my sympathies lie. As soon as my sympathies start lying with the Predator itself, it's not a Predator anymore. And the franchise has become something too distant from its origins for my tastes. On a technical level, the film works great. It's probably working with a bigger budget than any other Predator movie has to this point. The special effects look great. There's a lot of CGI here, but it's normally used to create sort of strange alien creatures and beasties and other predators on the planet of Jenna, and that's absolutely fine. Like I said, you've got Elle Fanning there, who has no legs for large parts of the movie, and that works well. She grows into her role. I think the way that she is introduced is with an overly friendly, overly quirky, kind of kooky, comedic style that I don't think really works quite as well as the film thinks it does. I think there is a lot of humor in the film, and particularly in the second half. There's a kind of sort of heist jailbreak kind of sequence in the second half that I think is one of the highlights of the story. I think that works really, really well. There are some sort of animal sidekicks that are further evidence of sort of the Disneyfication of this franchise, where they're almost looking for sort of merchandising opportunities, where they're looking for ways to inject heart and empathy into the story. I have nothing wrong with these sentiments, but again, this doesn't really feel like the right time or the right place. Overall, this feels like yet another of these sort of Disney quests about an individual, an outcast, finding their sense of self-worth, about mismatched characters learning to get along if they'll just put aside their differences. All good messages, but not the messages I want from a Predator movie. In a nutshell, very happy that Dan Trachtenberg has been given free rein to essentially do whatever he wants with the franchise. But what he has chosen to do in this instance is make a Star Wars movie with a yautja at the center, who even isn't that much of an ugly melon farmer in this movie. And it just becomes something else. It just becomes another deep space action fantasy like Star Wars, like Guardians of the Galaxy, one of those Disney properties that is fun for the whole family. I don't want to be one of these sort of snotty-nosed edgelords who's like, I want my action to be R-rated, where's the violence? I thought it was quite violent enough, actually. I thought there's a lot of goo, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of decapitations, etc. That is all fine. For me, though, the overall tone is something more like a kind of Lord of the Rings style adventure fantasy than a Predator movie. And for me, that's a problem.